I walked in the place, sat by the bar, all the drinks on me, don't go too far, sitting by the bartender, asked her.
Good morning. This is your boy Icon E, and we're here on 910 Sports. First and foremost, I want to thank God for this opportunity to be on here, to be able to have this opportunity to have great people on, be with my brothers, and have great guests on this morning. So I'm gonna introduce everybody from my left down to my bottom over. I got my man, Mr. Georgia Everything, from the nightclubs to the games, to everywhere. He be at the baseball games, he be at the football, he be at the bat. He might show up in your living room to watch a game, which you never know. You know what I'm saying? I got my man, Mr. Steve-O in the building. What's going on, Doc? Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Well, he'll plug back in a minute. And then down to the bottom, I got my man, you know what I'm saying? My Ace Boone Coon, the man that helped me get all this started, get this thing going. You know what I'm saying? The Mr. Personality himself, Jacob, the great. What's going on?
Good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning, everyone, man. We're blessed to be in the land of the living. Thank God for another opportunity to be on the 901 Sports podcast. And we here, man. Let's let's talk about some great, sports business. And this is a part of a great mission to be on the sports ministry. So we here, man, doing what we do, inspiring the youth. Along with having remarkable backstories of the people that mentor the youth.
Oh, okay. Yes, sir. So basically, introduce this young man for us at the top, and then we'll go ahead and get this thing started.
Man, I have Coach Cox, which is, I just want to say shout out to Andrew Coyne for making this plug, and so Coach Cox, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. I'm excited to be here. It's a blessed, wonderful morning, and I'm just ready to get the opportunity to talk with you guys.
Okay, so before we get into your questions, just to let people at home understand who you are. The one question that everybody want to know when they meet you: who is Coach Craig Cox?
Who's Coach Craig Cox? Do I start from my youth or start from my coaching days?
You just start from the backstory is from the youth up to your coaching days. So you know what I mean.
True. I grew up always loving football. The one thing I always knew I wanted to be a part of. Of course, I wanted to play professional football ever since I was young. And at some point, you got to realize that they want size and speed and talent and all that stuff. And heart is not just enough. But I did get the opportunity to get into coaching, coach a little bit of high school and some semi-pro. I worked a real job at a high school for about 10 years and realized that wasn't for me. Worked at an automotive plant, made great money, but I wasn't passionate about what I was doing. So I had the opportunity to get into college coaching, and ever since that day, it was over 20 years of coaching college. I never felt, not one time, like I had a job, like I was going to work, because it's something that you're passionate about doing and you love doing it. It doesn't feel like a job. So I was blessed with that opportunity to do that for a long time. One thing I've always done as a college coach, I've always met with my players one-on-one and talked about anything other than football. Every week we get together. And throughout the years, those sessions grew from just starting off as academics, started getting into more life skills and student success type stuff. And then when COVID came around, we couldn't coach. I mean, we couldn't play football, so we had a lot more time on our hands. And I had the opportunity to start meeting with all my players. I was a defensive coordinator at the college level, and I had the opportunity to start meeting with all my players one-on-one. And that's when it really opened up my eyes that these things that we're teaching, things that successful people do, get these students one-on-one, and they open up a lot more to you than they would in a group session. I spent years teaching all these skills in group sessions, and a lot of times these young men, they don't want to open up about what it is they want to do in life and their goals and their aspirations, and when it's in a group. But when I started doing these one-on-one meetings, and I was meeting with over 60 players a week, and I started seeing those eyes light up when they realized that, everything they've always been told is not necessarily true, and that they can become anything in life they want to become, and they can change anything they want to change about their life, and it's up to them. And so I became even more and more passionate about teaching these things. Sorry. And I think God was just working that path for me. And my wife got accepted into optometry school here in Kentucky. And with COVID and all the kids learning from home now and learning how to use Zoom, and everything just kind of worked together, where I stepped out of coaching, resigned from coaching. I had a pretty good position as a defense coordinator, resigned, and we moved to Kentucky, and I started this business so that I can reach out to more students. And because of COVID, with everybody knowing how to do Zoom and Google Meet and all this stuff, I'm able to meet with students all over the country, and I've even had a few international students. So
Okay.
I always, I never thought that I would enjoy something as much as I love coaching. I do want to get back into coaching at some point, but I tell you what, I'm so passionate about this, and I love it. It's bigger than a lot of the victories that we have. I mean, I have a bowl ring from when I was coaching at Johnson C. Smith University, and that thing sits in a drawer, and I pull it out once a year and look at it. All that winning on the football field is great, but it's just a memory. When you're able to have the opportunity to change people's lives, that's a whole lot more important.
Okay, coach. So, one-on-one life consulting, um, that has kind of took a life of its own since we were in the pandemic, and now that we're out of the pandemic, it's a full-fledged consulting business for you. So, when it comes to the parents and the students and getting them prepared through your consulting company, what is the process to get parents and students on the same board to understand who you are and what you bring to the table for them?
The biggest challenge, I'll say, from the beginning is getting in front of parents. And so typically I usually meet with students or message students on Twitter, and once they reply, then I try to reach out to their parents from there. And I've created some videos to help, parents, where they click on a link and see what the program is about. And I spend a lot of time talking about the education statistics, because I think it's important that you know what you're getting into and what battle we're facing. So I spend a lot of time talking about that, and then I go into details about my program, as well as reported benefits from students that's taking the program, and just give them opportunity to get to know me. And from that, they usually set up a meeting with me, a one-on-one meeting with me, so that I can answer any questions and hopefully get their son or daughter started in the program.
Okay. So from the coaching aspect, coach, Campbell University, Johnson C. Smith, Virginia, is it Virginia University as well?
Virginia Union University.
Yeah, Virginia Union University. So from the coaching aspect, there was a lot of passion there, and now you're no longer coaching. Is that a burning sensation that will ever leave you, or do you sometimes scratch your head and figure out how you can do both, the consulting and the coaching?
I mean, that is definitely the plan. I did help at a local high school a little bit last year, to get the opportunity again to get in front of these young men and try to help them learn these skills as well as football. But absolutely, my vision for this program is to set up an opportunity for students who want to learn these skills and connect them with coaches who want to teach these skills, either current college coaches or retired or out of work college coaches, give them the opportunity to make a little, have a business where it's convenient time wise for them. They can set their own schedule. They can make a little money and have the opportunity to teach these skills to kids who are not getting them. A lot of students who are not in athletics or not in college athletics, they don't get the opportunity to sit down with coaches one-on-one and learn these skills. And that's the biggest difference between my program and anything I've seen out there. Is most of it, the teams will have someone come speak about a skill like time management. The difference with this program is one-on-one. We're gonna sit down together one-on-one, face-to-face through Zoom, and we're gonna hammer it out. We're gonna make sure we're gonna see what your schedule looks like right now. We're gonna make sure you understand the importance of using your time wisely, and then we're gonna help you set up your schedule, not just your daily schedule, but your weekly schedule, what your month looks like. And then we go back and review it to make sure that you're on the right path. So it's a lot different than just having someone come and speak to a group, for an hour about a subject. We really sit down and hammer it out throughout the week. So that's the biggest difference. This program is one-on-one and it's personalized. Some people need a little bit more time on time management. Some people need a little more time on understanding the importance of making goals because they don't know what they want to do. So that's the other great thing about this program is I can move a little bit faster through the program in certain areas with somebody, and I can move a little bit slower in certain areas with somebody else. So.
Okay. Appreciate that. Thanks for taking us in depth on what the program about and how being in the pandemic and coming out the pandemic and how your program took a life of its own. Okay, I'll come back to you, man.
Yeah, so basically when it comes to your program, and I think a lot of people don't really understand when it comes to like college kids, when you go to from high school, you kind of got a structured day because you take 7, 8 classes, whatever it is throughout the day. So you kind of know from 8 o'clock in the morning to 4 o'clock in the afternoon what you got going on. When you're in college, it could be sporadic. You might have a couple classes in the evening, a couple classes in the morning, then you got all that time in between, and it's a lot of distraction. So is that what you've seen from your players and students across the campus? That was the main issue of why you started this program, because seeing that kind of thing that these kids really don't understand, what to do in between that idle time in between, and that's maybe why they were suffering, maybe academically or whatever, socially.
I mean, I think absolutely that. I mean, unfortunately, a lot of these things they try to teach it. They call it college success, or a lot of colleges they'll teach a class when you first get there. It's usually not even an accredited class, and they're supposed to teach you these types of skills to be a good college student. But unfortunately, you're already in college and you already have the distraction. So that's really one important thing I thought, to be able to meet with students before they get to that point. If they can learn these skills before they get to college, then they're not trying to learn these skills after, when it's pretty much too late. They already have, like I said, time on their hands that they're not used to having. They're having to make decisions that they're not used to making. So it's important that they learn how to use their time and learn how to stay focused on where it is they want to go at the high school level, so that when they get to college, it's not a big shock. Because like you said, when they get to college, especially if they're a student athlete and they come to camp, I mean, it's a whole different world. It's a whole different world.
Okay, so I know you still like in the infancy stage and the kind of the beginning of all of this kind of what you got going on. What has been so far up to this point your biggest success story?
I mean, I just think getting the opportunity to see these young men grow, and that really started at my last spot when I was meeting with those 60 players a week. Seeing the look in their eyes and the growth and the change. And I was the defensive coordinator there, so I was meeting. It started off, hey, all the defensive players, you're gonna come meet with me once a week. So they didn't really have much choice. But when it was funny, when the offensive guys started seeing the changes in the defensive guys starting to walk around a little bit different. They were starting to walk around with a different attitude, with a positive attitude, and they're excited about it. Well, now I start having offensive guys come to me, hey, coach, I want to get on these meetings too. So just, those comments later on and that you get from players, those texts that say, thanks, coach, I really appreciate it. Because every successful person I've ever heard talk, or, you can read on any of the books of successful people, they always say, why don't we learn these things in school? So, and that's a really good question. Why don't we learn these things in school? And that's one thing I'm really, really trying to fight. And so, but until then, the least thing I can do is meet with students individually who want to learn these skills and have them ready for them when they get to college. Because y'all know the biggest thing that motivated me to do this was the retention rates and the college graduation rates in the U.S. I mean, it's just easiest way to put it is it's unacceptable. I mean, retention rates is one of my more fascinating percentages. And for your listeners who don't know what retention rates are for colleges, it's the percentage of college freshmen that return back to the original institution for the sophomore year. So basically saying, how many of these college freshmen make it after 1 year? How many of them return back to school after just 1 year? And the national percentage for retention rates in the U.S. is only 62%. So basically, 4 people out of every 10 college freshmen, 4 out of 10 do not return back to their original school. And that's after all the hard work and the effort from the parents and the students to make sure that they found the right school to go to. They took all the visits, they paid all the application fees, they filled out all the applications, they did all their research, and this is the school that they absolutely want to go to, spend the next 4 years, graduate. And 4 out of every 10 don't make it. And so something's wrong with the system. We got to find some way to fix that. Graduation rates aren't much better. Just to put it as bluntly as you can, the dropout rate in the U.S. for colleges is 40%, and over 1 million college students drop out every year. That's unacceptable. It's unacceptable. I always use the example: if I was a dentist and 40% of my clients' teeth just fell out their mouth after they left my office, well, I wouldn't be a dentist very long. Or if I was a mechanic and 40% of my clients' cars broke down on the way home, I wouldn't be a mechanic very long. So it's a little interesting to me that we're okay with 40% dropout rate for colleges and universities in the U.S., especially when it's as important as it is for our students and our children's future. We got to find another way. We got to find a way to fix that. So that's why all my videos and everything starts with, we can change. It's time for us to change the percentages.
And one other thing too, before I pass it on to Steve, I do agree with you on one particular thing too, because my son, when he first went to college, I remember he goes to Fort Valley, a senior now, but I remember he went on a band scholarship. And don't do that, Steve. He went on a band scholarship, and when he first went, I remember the first week he wanted to quit because he felt like the band director wasn't, because he was used to such a structure and certain things that he was doing in high school from a band situation. His new director, he felt like, oh, he's not teaching us anything, or we doing the same song repetitively for 100 times in a row, and we used to working on different songs. And I would tell him, I said, son, you got to wait. You got to be patient. I said, you can't make judgment off of a school or even what you got going on in the band off of 1 week, you know what I mean, or whatever. So, and I think that's the thing about these kids when you say that they quit after the first year, is that a lot of people don't think these kids want to be guided and want to be taught or led, and a lot of them do. They want to feel comfortable, especially when they leaving home. And you know what I mean? And being able to be in a situation like yours where they learn how to kind of be able to lead themselves on a daily basis is very, very important. You know what I mean? So what's your thought on that?
I agree with you. A lot of times those decisions are made too early and in haste. And, I think as a college coach, we used to call it a little bit of homesickness, especially when they come to camp. And part of that is preparing those students before they get there. You know, a lot of students I've seen they get there without knowing why they wanted to be there to begin with, which it was just surprising. I don't know if it's if it, they're doing it because their parents wanted them to do it, but a lot of them get there and they have no vision of where they want to go and what it is they want to do. And that's one thing I ask students. That's one of the first questions: what it is you want to do, what are you passionate about? And always, I'm talking to a lot of football players most of the time. All football players, even myself, they want to play football as long as they can. They want to go to the NFL. But my question is always, what are you passionate about after football? Because there's always an after football. Whether it's after high school, after college. If you do get blessed and lucky enough to play in the NFL, the average lifespan in the NFL is about 2 years. If you're fortunate enough to play 10, that's actually retirement age. I mean, even Tom Brady, has to retire sooner or later. So there's always an after football. And even after 10 years, you're 30 years old. So what is it after football? Find out what you're passionate about doing. And so that's always one of the first conversations I have. And a lot of times students or these young men or women, they've never been asked that question, never actually took the time to sit down and think about it. And that's one thing I forced in my program. We got to sit down and think about these things. Before I meet with you next week, I want you to think about this and let me know, what it is. So that's the biggest key. They need to know what it is they're passionate about, what they want out of life, because you can't get to a destination if you don't know where that's at.
Okay, Steve, go ahead.
Yeah, can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
I'm having some technical issues over here. I apologize about that, Coach. Coach, you said you've been in the game 20 years with coaching. I mean, how has the student athlete themselves changed for you? I know we always have this conversation on this show talking about kids nowadays and how you kind of have to collar them a little bit more. You can't really go at them and drive on them like we used to. You know what I mean? Me having a 12-year-old son myself and thinking back to how my military dad used to treat me at 12. I appreciate it now that I look back on life, and it gave me some of the disciplines that I have. But I know with these kids nowadays, you have to be a lot different when it comes to your techniques of how you talk to them, how you get close with them. How have you adapted and changed with the child or with the times, basically?
Well, one thing, I've changed a whole lot. I've grown a whole lot. I mean, I look back when I was a younger coach, you did kind of motivate through fear, and you get into business thinking it's just about you're coaching football, but as I've grown and as I've changed, and that's kind of one thing I'd like to get into maybe later. One of the things I do in my program is we create our own personal core values, and one of the values I created probably about 8 years ago was I wanted to be positive, because I was a negative person, and a lot of it was who I was hanging around with, and I always thought in the negative terms.
Mm-hmm.
And if you asked any of my players back then, like for example, when I was at Virginia Union, they would probably say that I was a negative guy. And
Gotcha.
after I created my own core values and I read them every day and I said them every day and I looked at them every day, I became that. And so you ask any of the players from Lincoln University, where I was at last, or from this high school, the first thing at their mouth, coach is always positive. He's always upbeat. He's always uplifting. He's never down. You can't knock him off base. So I was able to change a whole lot. And so I coach a lot more. One thing, if you build a relationship with your players and they understand that you do genuinely care about them, and it's not just about what they do on that field, they're going to run through a wall for you. You don't have to cuss at them and yell at them and down them and just knock them down over and over and over and coach out of fear. If they really, really understand and know that you care about them and you want what's best for them, they're gonna run through a wall for you, and they're gonna be really good players for you.
Gotcha. I appreciate that, Coach. And recently, Coach, there was some comments made by same name, but a certain coach that left for HBCU and went out west. He said he wants his quarterback to come from a two-parent home. He wants his defensive lineman to come from a one-parent home, a broken home. How do you feel about that, Coach, when it comes to you looking for your student athletes? Or do you even factor that? Are we more focused on the kid and trying to improve their situation instead of saying, let me get somebody that's going to use that? Let me use their pain from that situation.
I absolutely. I think you focus on helping every individual. I mean, and that can go both ways. I've dealt with some students from two-parent homes that were hard to deal with, and I've dealt with, and some of the best players and best people I've ever dealt with came from one-parent homes. So I don't necessarily agree with that as a measuring stick, and as far as recruiting,
Okay.
I think a lot of times some of those one-parent homes are the ones who need the help the most if they didn't have father figures in their life. But I don't think that's a good measuring stick as far as recruiting.
Yeah, I agree. When he said it, I was kind of taken back by it. You know what I mean? Like, wow, did you really say that, Dia? I know we think that. You know what I mean? We all have that mentality in our head that the rough, tough defensive linemen probably come from the rough areas and they grew up with a checkered past type situation. But yeah, I wasn't comfortable with Deion saying that and him getting this platform and saying that now. So I appreciate that, Coach. Thank you so much. Go ahead, Icon.
Oh, go ahead, Jacob.
Oh, my bad. Jacob.
Your volume down.
You're on mute, Jacob. We can't hear nothing you're saying, my boy.
Coach, when it comes to the program, right? Are there any bylaws set in place for people that are entering your program as far as for you're going to be consulting with them? Do you have any bylaws set in place? Is there any type of, handbook about the program, or is there a student parent guide that you put together?
Honestly, I do not currently, other than all the information I have on my website. We do have a contract that I do, and it just basically goes into detail on signing up for the meetings and showing up for the meetings. Because if I'm going to dedicate my time to a student, I want them to dedicate their time to me as well. But that is a great idea. That might be something I want to work on. Is more of a handbook that I can email to parents as well, so they have a little bit better understanding. But that's one thing I do. I encourage parents to be involved. They have my number as well. They have my email. They could always direct message me. I want to hear about the successes. I want to hear, or a concern. And sometimes those phone conversations are with the parents, on the side, and maybe it's something that they're concerned about that they want me to try to help the student with. Definitely have had that. And so I'm able to kind of get a heads up on what the student is thinking and get opportunity to help the parents out in dealing with issues.
Okay. So back to piggyback on what Steve said, you've been in the business for a long time, over 20 years. And when it comes to like we older, so we grew up with the tough love, with the the type of tough love that your pops or your mom in business. And nowadays, you kind of just have to be this really soft, meek, and mild parent to get your point across to the kids. They don't really understand the toughness and aggressiveness when you be vocal about what you mean. So do you think parents being so soft nowadays prepares kids for what's really out there in the real world? And how does that really set them up for society?
That's a good question. I think if any of us really have the answer to that, we're gonna be millionaires writing a bunch of books and on TV, all the time.
Right.
It has changed a lot, from what I've grown up with and what you do now. But again, I think the most important thing is that they understand that you love them and that you want what's best for them. And sometimes you got to put that foot down, and make sure that they understand that you are still the parent. But yeah, that society has changed a whole lot, and there's benefits to it, and there's issues with it as well.
Okay. I got one more question. I'm gonna hand it back to you. Now, Coach, you've been in the sports ministry for a very, very long time, and a lot of people don't understand when you walk with God and you working with young athletes. That's a part of your sports ministry. Now, through your sports ministry, have you been able to be a advocate in the community as well, and kind of embrace the fact to your players that if you support your community, they'll support you, and the community matters, and how you are perceived in the community as a student athlete really matters as well. So, have you guys had those conversations?
Absolutely. I mean that's probably I know there's a whole session on that, and as far as I want them to think about what it is that they do want to give back to. Um, what type of charities, not just what type of charities they want to give back to, but what can they do with their time? Because giving back and service to others is everything. Um, and and the more they understand that, and the laws of nature that we go through and talk about, the more you give back, the more you're gonna get in return. So, but that is definitely a session that we have, and we sit down and talk about those things. And I want them to think big when they think of that. I don't want you to just think about you want to help this charity. I want you to think about you're going to create this business that's going to help this charity for a long time. And so we think a lot bigger than just going to help out uh, Goodwill for a couple hours. We want to think from a larger scale. How can I service others? How can I help others? How can I reach others and bring them up?
Okay. Thank you for that, Coach. Thank you for that. I'll come back to you.
So I know you got the 101 life skills, the 3-digit defense. Explain that part of the whole program.
Well, that's actually something completely separate. That's something I came up with from a football standpoint, defensively. Um, a long, long time ago, before I got into college coaching, it's really just a different way to call a defense that makes it a lot more simpler to learn, is an easier recall for the students, and makes it a lot more versatile. I use that at the semi-pro level. I used it at the D2, the D1, and even now at the high school level last year. And everywhere I've been, the defenses have gone from some of the worst in the country to some of the best. I've coached top 5 defenses in Division II and Division I FCS as a defensive coordinator using this system. So that's actually something that's completely different that I'm working on, and that's something I would talk with high school coaches, a high school or college coaches, and clinic with them. That's separate from the program. That's something I came up with years and years ago.
Oh, so is your success as being a defensive coordinator? What do you feel like your secrets to success without giving up too many of your goodies? But
How you gonna tell you the secret? That's the secret.
But not, what? That's the one thing that I love about this profession is you go talk to a coach, they're gonna share, and it's they might not share every bit of the goodies, but they'll always share. And coaches, you don't have to tell coaches to go try to get better. They voluntarily go to all these clinics. They voluntarily get all these books because they want to get better. That's one difference between coaching and a lot of professions out there. That you got to force people to try to thrive and get better at. Coaches always want to do that and always share their information. So, as far as secrets, that's one thing. I plan on doing clinics. I'm working on trying to get a book published on the 3-digit defense. It has helped me a whole lot, and I think it was a big part of changing those defenses around. Going from worst to one of the best at John C. Smith, Virginia Union, and at Campbell University. When we took over Campbell, it was ranked dead last in almost every single category. And by year 3, we were top 5 in the country. And I think that 3-digit defense had a lot to do with it. So that's one thing I'm really trying to market and push out to more, coaches and start doing some clinics, that type of stuff. But yeah, we share the material. Anything that could help the game and make the game better. That's one thing about coaches. We don't keep it under lock and key too much.
And think about it, my wife family. That's where my wife is from. She's from Lillington, so out there in Campbell. Or we just moved back from there like a few months ago.
Okay.
So yeah, so I know all about the Campbell and Lillington area or whatever. So when it comes to your defense or whatever, as far as the success on the field or the scheming of it, the type of players you look for, do you look for more speed? Do you look for power? Do you look for what do you kind of look for when you was recruiting? When you were out on the recruiting field, what were you looking for in the type of player that you wanted?
As a defensive coach, you always want speed. And you can tell a defensive player when you watch the film. Some players are playing defense, but they're not defensive players. So you can see in their mentality and the way they attack the football, the way they tackle, if they're defensive players or not. So that's one thing I've always looked at, even as defensive backs, cornerbacks. Are they going to come up and hit somebody? So that's one thing I always looked at for those little cornerbacks. I mean, most corners are, they're going to be fast and can cover, but can they come up and hit somebody? So those are the biggest things I look at from a physical standpoint, is speed and that aggressiveness and the ability to tackle.
Okay. Oh, I got one last question before I give this back to Steve. Who over all the years that you coach, what's maybe one or two players that when they came into your system that at first you was like, I don't know, I might have to end up sending him home or benching him, and it ended up being your most success story on the field as far as, somebody that by the time they was a senior, you were like that super proud dad?
I mean, I can think back at a lot of examples at almost every school, but you really never know. Some of the ones that come in that you have high hopes for, and they don't put the work in, or they don't pan out like you thought they would, versus some of the ones that you wasn't expecting a lot out of. I remember at Livingstone College, the first school I coached at, we had a walk-on tryout for students on campus. And we had a running back come out who just walked on, and he ended up being second or third in the conference in rushing that year. So he was a big surprise, and not just on the field, but he was a great kid as well. So there's a lot of good players I've had the opportunity to work with. That, especially when we get to Campbell, then we had some guys who got opportunities to get on camps in the NFL, play some preseason games. That you really appreciate all the hard work and the dedication they put into getting to that level. And that's one thing a lot of students don't realize, the hard work and dedication it takes to get there. They wait till their junior or senior year and make that decision. Okay, I'm pretty good. I'm gonna try to get to that. It's you got to start that from as soon as you get in that door. You got to have that mentality and think about it, because it's not easy to get there. But if you put the work in and you got the right mindset, you can definitely get there.
Okay. Go ahead, Steve.
All right, now I wanted to ask some questions. You said it's called a 3-point defense. Is that correct?
3-digit defense.
3-digit defense. Scheme wise, coach, what are we looking at? Are you got 4 down linemen, 3 down linemen? How are you looking scheme wise when it comes to your front seven?
Well, 3-digit defense, you can go either way. That's really just how it's broken down, how you call it.
Okay.
But I've always been a 4 down lineman guy. I've never really been a 3-4. I've always, as a defense coordinator, I've always had 4 down linemen.
What's your reasoning for that, coach? Why are you more inclined for the 4-3 instead of the 3-4? If you don't mind me asking.
I mean, that's a good question. I think it's just preference and what you're comfortable with. the thing about the 3-4 and the 4-3, at the end of the day, it ends up being the same because every defense is a gap defense.
Yeah.
So most 3-4s, they wind up being an under defense or an over defense every play because they'll send somebody in one of those gaps, and so it's really the same. I spent most of my career coaching defensive line, so that may have part of it too. I like the two big interior guys, I like the two
I
rush
got you.
ends. So I think they could be more specialized, and it really depends, who you have to work with too. I mean,
True.
I know a lot of people have to change from a 4-3 to a 3-4, but at the end of the day, everybody's responsible for a gap. It ends up being almost the same thing, just other than what it looks like before the snap. Now, I've always had some odd fronts that, with the same 4-down personnel, just stand up and in.
Okay.
It does change the blocking assignments for offenses if you do that.
True.
It winds up being the same thing. It could wind up being under every time, but because you move the nose over and stand up and in, now they block it different.
I got you. I know on the high school level, me personally, I want to go with the 3-4 because I'm confusing that offensive line. You know what I mean? I know they don't know which linebacker's coming. They don't know what side the pressure's going to come from. So from a scheme wise in high school, I'm going to probably preference the 3-4 because I have so many variations where I can bring those 4 linebackers. But if my linebackers are slow, I can't run a 3. You know what I mean? You can't run a 3-4 with slow linebackers. So it's not going to work, Coach. So you know that. Okay. So now I just I was getting more having more questions about the 3-digit defense. I thought it was more of a scheme-based thing than an actual play calling. So, no, okay, I understand. That's it, Icon. Jacob, I don't have anything else. Thank you, Coach.
Thank you.
All right. Go ahead, Jacob.
Jacob, you're on mute. If you don't want to talk to us, just tell us that.
Just from this standpoint of view, now moving forward, Coach, are you looking to work with more overseas sports personnel when it comes to the soccer, when it comes to the lacrosse, when it comes to a lot of stuff that may not be predominantly in the United States? Are you looking to take your program overseas and to become a international consultant? When it comes to sports management, time management, when it comes to showing people how to orchestrate their program, or are you looking to put, a one-on-one life consulting firm over in the overseas area?
That's a great question. Like I said, I've had a few clients out of the country. I worked with one student in Haiti who was a basketball guy, and then I worked with a couple students in Canada, and they were more football. But really, what I teach is not sports related. I mean, I use a lot of football analogies because I've been a football coach, and I speak with mostly football players, student athletes who play football. And the reason I guess is because once you have that coach by your name, they listen to you a little bit differently, rather than if I'm just Craig Cox and I've never coached football. A lot of these student athletes, they probably wouldn't spend time talking to me. But because I coached college for 20-some years and they want to play college, and I know what it takes to get there and how to be successful there, they're going to listen, and they're going to listen a little more attentively. We have enough battle here. I'm not saying I would turn down any international clients because, like I said, I've had a few. But I think the battle we have here in the United States with our graduation rates, with our retention rate, is we got a lot of work to do. And I think it's important that we teach these kids the skills that they need to be successful once they get to college. A lot of them spend so much time and so much money and effort, getting that opportunity to go to college. But they're not understanding that 40% of those, 4 out of every 10, are not even going to graduate. That's the thing we need to fix. And with over 1 million, college students dropping out every year, there's plenty of students to work with right here in the U.S. And again, my goal is to get other coaches on staff who want to have that opportunity to reach out to kids and have some flexibility in their schedule to work with students. And that's where I see the business really going, is being that connection between students who want to learn this, hopefully mostly high school, sophomore and up, connecting them with either current college coaches or former college coaches.
Okay. And so, last question, Akon. Um,
Mhm.
but coach, when it comes to one-on-one life consulting and get recruited consulting, um, how do you guys, kind of match up well and kind of create this alliance where where parents and student athletes can understand on both sides of what both of you are bringing to the table?
Absolutely. Thank you for bringing that up. As a college coach, I had to deal with a lot of recruiting services. And I'm just going to be honest with you. A lot of these recruiting services, all they do, they'll sign a kid, take the money, and they'll blast you with an email, knowing that kid is not going to play at the Division One FCS level, but he can tell the kid, "Oh yeah, I sent the information to the coach." So as a college coach, when you get in the office and you got 80 emails sitting in your box from one recruiting service, and the players you did watch last week were D3 level, and you're at the FCS level, you start doing delete, 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 delete. So that's what we end up doing as college coaches. Most of the time we get in the office, we delete most of those emails because a lot of those recruiting services aren't doing what they say they want to do. And so when I got into this business, I got that question a lot. Coach, you gonna be able to get me recruited? You gonna be able to find me a spot to play? And that's not really what I got in this business for. What I got in this business for is to help you succeed. Once you get there. So I did reach out to different recruiting services. And one thing about Coach Cohen and Get Recruited Consulting is he does what he says he's going to do. And I remember him from back when I was a coach. He was that recruiting service that would call you and talk to you, not just blast your emails. And he's only calling you and talking to you about players that can play at your level. So his recruiting service is a lot different. And that's why he's the only one I work with. So now if I get a client that says, "Hey, can you help me get recruited?" I'm referring them right to him. And that's because, like I said, he's always done what he says he's going to do. And he's just going to be right up front and honest. If you're a D3 player, he's going to tell you you're a D3 player. Let's find the right D3 fit for you. Where a lot of these, they're going to take your money and just blast coaches with emails, and they're not getting looked at. They're not even getting read. So, yeah,
well,
absolutely.
I want to ask you one last.
I got one more too.
One last. As far as that concerned, because a lot of these kids, a lot of them are very sensitive, and when you tell them the truth, when you're honest with them, when you have to tell a kid, "Oh, you're not a D1 player," of course you're gonna say it in a certain way, a professional way that we look at you more, pushing you towards or guiding you toward the Division 2 schools, Division 3 schools. How do those conversations go?
Those are tough. Luckily, that's Coach Cohen has to have those. I can work around those conversations. I don't have to deal with that a whole lot. I can say, "Oh, you're talking to Coach Cohen," but no, that is a tough conversation. And a lot of times, honestly, it's more the parent than it is the student. I mean, some of these dads and moms think my sons should be going to Alabama, not Alabama, Birmingham. So that's the toughest thing is making sure that they understand, okay, you can keep fighting that battle, but you might lose your opportunities. And I've seen that a lot of times as a college coach, when you're recruiting somebody and they're not even listening to you because, an FBS had showed them, said hi to them one day, so they think they're going to FBS. And then signing day comes and they're out there, and now your roster's full, so you can't even help the young man. But you see that, unfortunately, you see that a lot. So I think that's a tough job for Coach Cohen to do, and for coaches who have to do that. But I mean, I think being honest is going to give those student athletes and their parents the best opportunity to find the right fit. so they don't wind up in those percentages of dropping out or having to go to another school.
Okay, Steve. One last question. We get up out of here.
Yeah, you talked about dropping out, coach, and the dropout rate. How do you, I guess, battle nowadays where people don't value that degree anymore and they're looking at social media as an easy way to make money, or Ubering? There's so many different ways that people feel they can make money quickly. How do you combat that when it comes to getting somebody to get that degree or pushing someone to get that degree? And also, when they come back and say, that the student loan debt is so crazy, that the debt you're in after you get out of school in this degree isn't worth the time and the effort and the money that I'm going to have to spend to pay back. How do you combat that, coach?
I'm glad you asked that question, because I think what you said is part of the issue. Nowadays, we think about the degree. We think about that piece of paper. Unfortunately, jobs, when we go look at jobs, they want to see that piece of paper, when the important thing is supposed to be the education that came along with that piece of paper. But that's not what we focus on. Back in the day, I always thought, while I was working at Livingstone College, and I actually graduated from Livingstone College, I went to school a little late. I thought about, what happened back in the late 1800s when they riding a horse to get to college and showing up for college and going to college for 4 years. When they go to a job, the guy's not asking for a piece of paper. He wants to know, do you have the knowledge? Do you have the education to do what I want you to do? We've really lost that now. I think it's more about that piece of paper than it is anything. One thing I teach my students is you got to focus on the education that you need to be successful at whatever it is you want to do in life. To be the best at your profession, to be the best at whatever it is you want to do, you need that education. Piece of paper is just a piece of paper. But I think that's part of the problem, is just what our focus is on. Our focus is on that piece of paper and not on the education, because we never stop learning. But if we go into that college understanding that I'm here for the knowledge, I think we look at things a little bit different.
I got you. Because when you look at the student loan that you're in after the fact, when people say, man, I know people, I got friends, man, they graduated, they're going through school now, they're still in school, they got $120,000, $130,000 student loan debt waiting on them afterwards, though. So if I look at that and say, man, do I really want to go that route and put in this time where I can go over here and work and get my? How do you combat that too, coach? Because I know that's a fight.
Yeah, I mean, and that is tough. And if you want remember we talked about the 1 million college dropouts every year. The average student debt, the average student debt for all college dropouts is like $14,000. So these are people that don't even get the degree to get the job to pay off the debt, and they still owe $14,000. But to go to that, one thing, college is not for everything. I'm sorry, for everybody. But I think it's important for the students to understand what it is they want to do in life. All right, if I hear somebody talking about wanting to get in the military, I know a lot of people who went in the military and had great experience, and my brother's one of them. He created a great life for himself. Trade schools. If you don't need to go to college to do whatever it is that you want to do in life, then I understand those things, and it saves that debt. You can get in the workforce faster. But a lot of things that we want to do in life, require that college education. So I think the biggest thing is understanding what it is you want to do. And a lot of these students, they don't know. I mean, I'll tell you one sad story. When I first got to Lincoln, I got there right in June. It was right in June. I was there only a couple of weeks before we started camp. And I'm having these conversations, and I sit down with a graduating senior defensive lineman. He's done after this semester. And I have these same conversations with everybody, but what is you plan on doing? He's like, Coach, I have no idea. It's a senior getting ready to graduate in college, and he doesn't have any clue. And so I feel as coaches, we failed that young man, because he should have that idea, at least as a freshman year in college. But I think it's even more important to have that idea of what it is you want to do with your life in high school, so that you can make the right decision on what college you want to go to, what you want to major in. And then that will help the retention rates and the graduation rates. And then people aren't racking up a lot of debt for a degree that they're not even going to use.
Yep. Thank you, Coach. I appreciate that.
Well, I appreciate you, sir, coming on this morning, giving us your time. I know you're a busy man. Real quick, just give out any social medias or any way they can contact you, for your services.
Absolutely. Thank you. My website is www.oneofonelifeskills, the number one of one lifeskills.com. I can be found on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram at One of One Life Skills. And my cell number is 704-267-1025. If you have any questions, text me and set up a time that we can talk. But I really appreciate you guys' time and what y'all do. And I thank you for this opportunity to talk with you.
All right. Well, you have a blessed rest of your weekend, and it's much success for what you got going on. And where we can help out, we're here for you, Coach.
Thank you very much.
All right.
Appreciate you, Coach.
Everybody have a good morning and have a blessed day. It's King Jacob, it's Steve-O, and it's your boy Icon, and we out of here.
I walked in the place, sat by the bar, all the drinks on me, don't go too far, sitting by the bartender.